My name is Stephen Fromfelder. I will be tonight's moderator for tonight's forum. So let me go over some first opening comments. Again, this is the forum for the candidate forum for the 2022 Crowa elections that are set with 8 candidates that are vying for 3 seats on the 7-member board of directors. The top 2 vote getters will earn a 3-year term, while the third highest tallying candidate will earn a 1-year term. Residents have been invited to email questions into management, and I have several questions here that we will be asking during the forum. To give you some clarification, the Celebration residential property owners will have the opportunity to submit their votes, whether online or by a paper ballot, beginning on January the 31st. Voting will end on Tuesday, March 1st at 5:30 p.m., at which time the ballot count will begin to commence. Winners will be introduced at the Crowa annual meeting on Wednesday, March the 2nd. Now, at this time, we'll go over some rules of engagement. Each candidate at this time, we'll start off, we'll have a 2-minute introduction of themselves. Then once that has all been completed, we will then move to the question and answers, which is a 2-minute session for each question. The 2-minute timing is being done by Lauren, who is our new executive director, and she is going to be basically holding up 2 signs for the individuals. One will be a 30-second warning, and then there'll be the stop sign. And that will be the end of that particular time for answering of that questions. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to open up to, let me introduce the candidates that we do have. First one, for everybody's information, we do have 3 candidates that are online, and we'll see how we get through this with the technology, since, again, technology is our friend. That's me saying that as the original technology chair, so I won't make any more fun with technology. Okay, the first candidate is Joanna. And Joanna, if you could give us a 2-minute introduction.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, there's a lot of feedback.
We're working to cut that back.
Do you want to go ahead and go with someone in person?
Actually, that's what we'll probably do. I'll move to Bill. Why don't you start with you, since you're here in person and we can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm Bill Grindle, owner since 2003, full-time resident since 2005. My background is pretty much, my life has been involved in real estate, facilities, all kinds of things having to do with buildings and properties and management. The last 20-some years, I've been working as a development consultant for affordable housing, responsible for, I don't know, a couple thousand units at least, maybe even twice that around the country. Still actively engaged, but retiring the end of March. Before that, I worked as a property manager for a condo management company. So we managed condo associations and provided services for that. I've been to many, many condo board meetings, granted from the management side. And before that, I worked for real estate development, management, and owner. You know, so did condo management, facility management, and property management. And I worked for a couple of colleges as the facilities director. Managing, you know, all the physical plant for 2 different colleges, and almost all that work has been in Boston. The company I work for in the affordable housing industry, Boston-based firm, and I'm in charge of the Florida office. I have a master's in business administration, and I have done other studies in property contracts, construction estimating, studied cost estimating, in college and also at RS Means, who pretty much manages it, and was on the development team for the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the development of their physical needs assessment, which is the equivalent of what you call an energy analysis. And I'm getting the red flag.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Okay, Jim Hayes.
Wait, you got the red before you got the yellow?
No, I got the yellow.
You got the yellow. Okay. I just want to make sure I get a yellow. Okay. Jim Hayes. You can read more at www.jimhayesforthefuture.com. Of course I did that, right? In the technology app. But I'm also a father. My wife and 4-year-old daughter at the time moved here in October of 2016. And we have been here since then, obviously full-time. We're not one of those people who live someplace else and lived here. There's a lot of people like that. I kind of feel like I'm in the minority a little bit in doing that. But we love the town. We love everything about it. And that's why when the opportunity to join the technology committee came up in April of 2019, I jumped at that. Was serving with Stephen as a president initially, and then stepped up to be the president about a year or so later. And that's what I've been working on. Obviously, that is a focus of mine. But as I said, I'm also a father, of a school-aged child. So that is obviously a consideration of mine. I know there's been a lot of talk about communication and lack of communication. And I agree that needs to be addressed and fixed. But it's not just the listening part, right? I believe that as board members, if we're elected to be a board member, we should be listening to the residents. But we also need to figure out how to communicate out to the residents what's going on, when it's going on. And we can't do that through one avenue. We can't just do it through social media. We can't just do it through the Friday Flash. We need to talk to people where they're at. And some people aren't on Facebook, believe it or not, those of you that are. Some people are not on Facebook. Some people don't like reading emails, and I need to stop. So I will talk to you more about that.
Okay, thank you very much. The next name I have here is Kenward Lawson. Ken, are we online? No? Then we'll go to Matthew.
Okay. Hi, I'm Matt Luttinger. Welcome to the 22 Crowa Candidate Forum. I want to be elected to help this town grow and move forward. I enjoy working with all the community and constituents in our neighborhood and look to establish our shared vision to help this town grow and move forward. I've been involved with Crowa Finance Committee with Bill here, and Brian and Jackson in the back. I'm a retired partner in one of the international accounting firms, so I've been involved in a lot of transactions and mergers and acquisitions and planning for business improvement. A lot of large audits. My expertise is in the financial services industry. I've represented some of the world's largest hedge funds. I hope to bring my 45 years of skills as a consultant and CPA to the Crowa board and moving the town forward. I've also been on the Artisan Park Committee for a while and its finance subcommittee. I've lived here since 2007 as a part-time resident and was active along the way. And now I'm a full-time resident since the early part of the COVID pandemic, since the May of 2020. I'm married to my wife, Jean, for 39 years. I have one daughter who's in public accounting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And last but not least, this is Celia.
Celia Mcfadden.
I do.
My name is Celia Mcfadden, and it's an honor to be here. But how did I get here? From 2015 to when I was elected last year, I attended multiple Crowa board meetings and workshops so I could learn how our community works, sometimes being a thorn in the board side. I participated during workshops for the charter revision that was voted in by residents in 2020. I was on the 2020 committee for the candidate forum, along with volunteering at the 2020 ballot counting process for the Crowa election. I was instrumental, along with a concerned teacher, in getting the board to implement security at Lakeside before I became a board member. I volunteer for Thriving in Place, Embrace Celebration, and currently I'm the vice president for the Celebrators of Celebration. When I was elected last year as a Crowa director, my vision changed. I'm on the other side of the table now. I have a fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of the community, to protect the homeowners' assets in regards to our amenities, and to maintain the highest amount of value to our homes, being single-family, condos, and townhomes. I created a 3-hour tour of celebration for the RFP process, toured 6 different management companies throughout our community. After narrowing down to 2 candidates for an extensive in-house interview, I have been told that one of my questions was identified as a defining moment. I am presently the board liaison for special events, the Recreation Committee, Pickleball, and Lawn Sports Task Force. I am also board liaison for the Condo Council, and as a condo owner myself, we need to remember that approximately 42% of the owners in Celebration are condo owners. I want to thank everyone for allowing me this opportunity this evening, and good luck to all of us.
Thank you, Celia. Okay, now we'd like, at this time, we'd like to go back and try talking to the individuals and hearing from them that are online. Joanna.
All right, let's try this again.
Oh, it sounds a lot better.
Oh yeah, it does. I don't hear any feedback. For some reason, I can't see Lauren and her flags.
Aha.
Ah, great. Alrighty. Okay, I can see it now. Okay, so hi, my name is Joanna Abedubin, and I have a spouse and 2 school-age children at Celebration K-8. We purchased our home on 1013 Nash Drive in December 2019. As I was prepping to get more involved as a Celebration homeowner, the world shut down from COVID. So as any working parent of a school-age child recalls, we simply don't want to talk about that. As an Air Force veteran and life member of the Veterans Club, there was a need for board members, and I volunteered as secretary in March 2021 and was just recently reelected for 2022 term. As mentioned, I wanted to get more involved in governance of Celebration, but my husband was tasked to deploy as a Navy Seabee in April 2021. We were given notice a couple months in advance in January, and in that meantime, I've dedicated most of my volunteer time with the Veterans Club and as a single parent, essentially. My husband will be returning home in March, which is why I've decided now is the perfect opportunity to volunteer for Crowa. You may recognize my name from the Celebration Buy Nothing group, K-8 School, Burn Boot Camp, or Gracie Baja Jiu-Jitsu, where my son and husband are founding members. I fully 100% love this community and simply want diversity, not just in age, but in ethnicity and life stages for different perspectives on the board. I have proven I work well and well-liked with the older generations of the Veterans Club that I call my friends. Let's see. How much time do I have left?
15 seconds.
Okay. I'm currently an accounting manager for Disney. I've been there almost 4 years. I started as a contractor and I've kind of worked my way up from there. Okay, but good luck to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'd like to hear from Elena.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. So I have moved to America in 1999 when I was in 3rd grade, not speaking any English. So I was able to learn quickly and assimilate with the rest of the class. So I grew up in New Jersey and in Florida, both of which I've spent my entire life living under HOAs. One that was gated and one that was not gated. So the rules that some complain about, I actually enjoy, and I know them very thoroughly between other HOAs and our covenants here. So my husband and I decided to purchase a home here because I work in Lakeland and he works in Orlando. So not only is it the perfect in-between spot, but it is a wonderful community with wonderful schools, and everybody loves living here. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my personal background and also my professional background. Personally, I love traveling and trying new foods. That is what I'm really passionate about, in addition to architecture. So with that, I would love to be on the art committee personally. That is my pride and joy, and my associates is almost in architecture. I received my bachelor's in marketing with a minor in Russian. I still speak Russian fluently. I also have a master's in business administration from Florida Southern College, where Frank Lloyd Wright has his largest collection of buildings, which we're very proud of. Additionally, I currently work at Satellite Logistics Services. I work in the HR side on the HR management systems. We have over 5,000 associates, and the system that I maintain, we complete everything in our system for all of our associates. I assist with assisting the payroll team, the timekeeping team, performance management, benefits, leaves of absence, talent recruiting, and regular HR transactions. Additionally, I've built out new modules like learning and advanced compensation in order to automate compensation.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we'd like to move on to Ken. Kenward Lawson. If we don't have Ken.
He is not in the audience.
He is not in the audience. All right, then we'll move on to Charles Richards.
All right, can everyone see and hear me okay?
I can see and hear you. Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'm setting my timer for 2 minutes. So while I do that, good evening to everyone, and really excited to be here. So my name is Charles Richards, and I am a resident of South Village. I have been here since 2012, over here at Banks Rose. So coming up on 10 years here in June, and it's just been a really interesting ride here. So I live with my wife, Ashley, and we have 2 boys, 6 years old. They just turned 6 a few weeks ago, Austin and Hudson, identical twin boys. So they keep us really busy, really busy, but wouldn't have it any other way. It's awesome having them here, having them in celebration with all the different things going on. It's just a great community with lots of great values and lots of great people. Professionally, I work at MetLife. I am a voluntary communications specialist. So my role is all about communication, really working with customers and clients to help them market their benefit programs. Communication is really important. And I think that to me was a main reason why I wanted to run for Crowa. I'm on the back porch and the different social media pages, and I think we have a lot of opportunities to enhance our communications through those channels. We're a multi-generational community. We have a lot of different demographics, and I think to me it was time to step up and use some of my skills, use some of my background to make positive change. I think, having kids, having a career is tough. It's tough for, those of us, that are young families. But, if you want to make change, you have to step up. You have to step up, use your skills, get involved. And that's really it. So, I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation. We have a lot of great candidates, a lot of great discussions. So really looking forward to a spirited discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, all the candidates, for your introductions. And at this time, we will switch over to the question and answer portion of the form. At this time, I'm going to randomly go along instead of just going through alphabetical, but randomly pick on the candidates for them to answer the questions that are posed to them. Okay. Matthew, what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and would you like to build upon?
I approve of our development of amenities, looking at finalizing plans for pickleball and mud sports. I was part of the committee in approving and recommending to the Crowa board the Grand Manor transaction. So I'm comfortable with the skill of all the board members in the financial area and my advice to them as part of that committee. We're moving forward in the right direction, and I hope for the transition to continue and be completed in reasonable order. I'm also interested, as others on the board, in furthering our working together with the other parts of the community, as my wife refers to it, the alphabet of organizations, and have better communication, because there's some other issues as Celebration starts on the journey of being a city, potentially, to address. And I'm comfortable the board is starting in the right direction.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, Miss Elena, based on the past year, what do you see as the one strength and the one gap with Crowa's leadership for Celebration?
The strength that I see is their ability to work as a team. I think that they've done a fantastic job with that. I think that it is pretty balanced out as a whole. As a weakness, or I prefer to say opportunity rather than weakness, I would say that there is probably not enough project management experience just based on the current events. And I would personally like to assist in that, because I have a project management background and I work in systems, and my day-to-day job is actually taking what is in an older system and moving into the system that I manage and shutting down the old system. I create the project plan, I do the cutover, and I do most of the project myself, to be honest.
Thank you. Okay, Bill. The board consists of 7 individuals. The individual board member can only be effective as their ability to network and reach agreement with the other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present for you if elected?
I don't see it as any problem at all. And I have been working with many of the board members now for over 3 years because of my roles on the Covenants Committee, my role on the Finance Subcommittee, and my role in the selection of Grand Manors as the property management company. Extensive numbers of hours, and I've worked very closely with a variety of board members and their capacities on those committees. So I don't see any problem working with anybody, and everybody and every contact I've had has been good communications and good information. So I see no detriment as long as that goes forward.
Thank you, sir. Joanna, this is not a softball question, but this is a question that's been asked by several people. Crowa is responsible for an annual budget with gross revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is key component to the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget? That's question 1. And can you expand upon then, can you explain the various categories of assets that Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenses?
Okay. So as you know, my background is finance. I am an accounting service manager. So basically the budget, from my experience, my undergrad is in accounting. I do have an MBA. It's all pretty simple stuff. there's, I know there's about 9 million in total operating costs. You have the Crowa, you have the rec budget, you have the CCS budget, and all of those different types of budgets. So I'm not understanding what your specific question is. Did they go away?
Yes, I don't see them.
You do?
What happens? Oh,
Are you there?
I can see you now.
Okay, not a problem. It's just it was a Apollo 13 moment. We had a problem.
Stephen, is there a reason we can't see her?
Elena, or excuse me, Joanne, do you not have your camera on?
I can turn it on. That's fine. Can you see me now?
Now we can see you. We heard
It's
the cat.
oh, okay. Yeah, usually my connection doesn't work well with video and sound. So I'll try my best.
Okay, but what the question was is that, again, based upon the budget and how it's broken out with those, with an approximate 7 million budget, the budgeting and expenditures of funds is key to the board's success. That's pretty much what.
Right, yeah. So I think we all have a fiduciary responsibility. And then obviously there's a treasurer responsibility to translate the budget to a Crowa board who may not be financial professionals.
Okay.
And
Anything
then
else?
in that, the Crowa has the responsibility to translate those fiduciary responsibilities to the community and translate it in layman's terms and what they can understand.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Okay. Miss Celia. Celia, I'm sorry. What is the one new amenity, if built, that you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
Oh, that's easy.
No,
Well, can I pick two or just one?
just one.
Okay. So I'm the board liaison for the task force for pickleball and lawn sports. I've been taking the lead with lawn sports, and I thank Brian, our board president, for letting me take the lead with it. The lawn sports that I'm the liaison for, we've been working with the recreation committee. We've been working with Albert Riddle. We have the task force that has provided drawings on where this would fit best within our community. This is also a multi-generational facility that we will have. It's just not for adults that can't play tennis anymore. It's not for adults that can't play golf. It's for when grandpa wants to bring his grandchild down to where one sports is going to be and play croquet or use a putting green, or while aunts and uncles are there or families there or visitors are there. This is something that we need in our community, because right now all we have is sport fields. We don't have anything other than the sport fields. We don't have an amenity for all generations to play as one. So that's my baby. That's my passion, lawn sports.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Charles, what is your perception of how much time is required of the board member to effectively perform the role? Follow-on question to that is, how do you manage the time commitments, and what changes do you think are required for board members to effectively govern with the required time commitments that they will have? The three-part question. Just give me the first one first.
Okay, sure. So I think based on the conversation, okay, hope you hear me. So I think the conversation we've had board members, past board members, really just spending time looking at the charter, bylaws, things that we have. It's a healthy investment of time. I think the reality is, you have to put in probably more than 5 hours a week. It's all about what are you spending your most time on, most pressing issue? We're all about maximizing. That's a big deal. I think I've heard very 5 hours from some people, 25 hours. Logs of people who keep their time tracked. I think it's all about what you bring, your passion, your knowledge, your ability to self-study, and bring all those which we're ready to do. Make it happen. And if you can go with the second part of the
how would you manage these time commitments?
Well, I've got 2 6-year-olds, I've got a wife, I've got a career. We have tons of plates in the air. We're juggling through a pandemic, with everything going on. It's all about making, before we did the candidate statement, my candidate book, and realize it's a lot, big time, not to run, I don't run just to have my name out. This is important. We have a lot going on. The next few years is going to be very, very tough. We have a lot. So making sure that I have that is really, really important. I don't take anything on. So, looked at my work, I've looked at my life, and this is something that's important to take the time. So it's worth it. We need it. We need change for the public. So I'm all in.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim, Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as the management company. We all know that transitions take time. What do you believe are realistic expectations for Grand Manners in 2022 and why?
I believe that unfortunately, for a number of reasons, some of which I know and some of which I'm sure I don't know, the transition was rushed. It's a difficult transition when you're with a company for 25 years. I think that, as a committee, the technology committee wanted to help out. We weren't given the opportunity to do that. Many of us, including myself, have worked moving data through, like, for instance, with myself, ERP systems, accounting systems. It's not easy. It's very imperfect, but you work hard and you do the best you can at it. I think that there is a lot built up, headwind built up against Grand Manners, which I personally don't think is completely fair to them. I believe that the board needs to make sure that they focus on the things that are big concepts, big issues for the residents, one of which I'm hearing is communication in the form of calling in and not getting a response. So one of the reasons I was able to sit in on the evaluation of the last 2, and one of the reasons that I thought Grand Manners was the best of the 2 was their ability to show how they really care about the community. I saw that, but also to their technology. So I know they have the technology to do it. I know they have a desire to do it. So it's just a matter of really helping them to do it. And I don't know enough at this point to give them specific things to get done this year.
Okay, thank you. Bill, what in your opinion on the process related to both the lawn sports and the placement of the pickleball courts on fields 1 and 2 or Lot D? What would you have done differently and why?
Well, I don't know what I've read some of the planning things and I know some of the history, but I haven't looked at the final decision. I didn't realize it was that close to final. My objective either way would be to maximize our available land. We don't have that much land to build things on. As Celia said, we've got things for younger people and we want things for older people, and we need to maximize our land and fit it there. So if there's a way to get 2 sports on the spot, on that plot, that's good. If there's a way to get 3 things on that spot, just so it's maximized well. And more than that, that the money is spent well. Because I think that in the past, there's been rushes to build things with not enough due diligence as to what actually can cost and what it should cost. And that's just the process along the way. But I think that as long as there's a constituency, whatever people want, we should try to build and try to fit it in, whether it's for younger or older people. But maximize what we have, finances and land and resources.
Sir, thank you. Elena, I'm repeating questions, but I didn't want to repeat on top of the last response. So that's why we're scattering around and you're getting the opportunity to hear all of them through the first go around. So we've just done that. So Elena, what are your 3 actions, 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of, and what would you like to build upon?
The action, honestly, I liked most was switching over from CCMC to another company. The RFP was a smart thing to do, and it was time. I wish that we kind of upped the ante for CCMC throughout the years. So that's something I would have, improved upon at the time. But from the research that I've done and some of my coworkers that do live in HOA and gated communities and non-gated communities, Grand Manors is one of the best in the nation. So even though we're having a tough time right now, I think long-term it is a good strategy. That's a great place that we picked. I don't regret that. I know that there's different thoughts and feelings about Grand Manors as a whole, but I know that they are great and I fully support that decision. I think some of the implementation had hiccups along the way, but that's the only part that I would fix.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, what is your perception of how much time is required of a board member to effectively perform his or her role? And how would you manage that time and those time commitments?
So I know the board members have, first of all, there is a place for board members to act as board members. And at some point in the past, the board members acted like management because the management company that was the predecessor, CCMC, did not handle all their responsibilities well. Now we're going to go into a period of time where the board members will spend good amounts of time, but not necessarily the level of time they spent in the past. You'll go back to being board members and let the management company, they will guide the management company in their function of running the Residential Owners Association. So I would say it's approximately 15 to 20 hours a week that I would be expecting myself to spend in various areas of the Crowa board.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Joanna. I'm going to go back to the question of what, in your opinion, on the process related to both the lawn sports and the placement of pickleball courts on fields 1 or 2 or Lot D, what would you have done differently and why?
What I personally would have done differently is probably engage the community a little bit more. Based on the survey of 2019, pickleball and lawn sports were not one of the top choices of the community. I know Crowa spent a lot of money to do that survey. So accounting wise, what you invested in, you want to take out what you invested in. So based on that survey, based on the lack of communication and engagement of the community. I think that's where we are now. The community is, rather upset. Not just that we're implementing it, it's just they weren't as aware about what was their money being spent on. So that's something I would change, is to engage the community a lot more in these type of decisions that are being made with their money.
Okay, thank you very much. Charles, the board consists of 7-member individuals. The individual board members can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with each other on the actual board. What challenges and opportunities will this present you if elected?
Great question. So, we are used to working with people. We have to work with different personalities, different skill sets, people who have been in the community since the beginning, people who just moved here. I think it goes back to the transferable skills. I think, when you look at, what I bring, I have skills in being able to manage conflict, being able to persuade, listening. These are really important skills for board members. So I think, you can work with anyone as long as you bring those skills. The one thing I want to just put out there in the open too, is ultimately I'm a voice for the community. At the end of the day, the community is the one that puts me in that seat, not a particular board member or board member. So, I will always act in the best interest of the community. I will represent the community. I will always keep my finger on the pulse, and we'll find a way to work together. But that's who I represent. I represent Celebration, not Charles, not a board member, but all of Celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Yes.
Crowa has responsibility for an annual budget with the gross revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is key to the components board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget?
Not very familiar. That would be one of the things that I would catch up on. But also, what I like to do when I work with a team of people is I like to defer to certain people who have more experience than I do in certain areas, allow them to take the lead, but also make sure I understand the distinctions, and also am able to make my own decision. I'm not going to, just because I'm deferring to them in terms of knowledge or subject matter expertise, doesn't mean that I'm going to defer to them when they make a decision on something. I'm going to be my own voice for the community, obviously, but I think that's a tricky thing, figuring out what the pulse of Celebration is. And I think we need to work more to figure that out from probably a metric standpoint, because it's very difficult to figure out whether everyone is getting their say. So as far as the budget is concerned, I did not prepare for that quiz test, so I apologize, but I will make sure that I know those when I go to my first day of class, if that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Celia. Celia, I will get
Three
it.
strikes, he's out.
McFadden.
Well, you didn't call me Cecilia, so
That's
that's
Ms.
okay.
McFadden. Based on the last year, what do you see as the one strength and one gap of Crowa's leadership in Celebration?
Based on the last year, what is our one strength?
Strength.
Our one strength is that we unanimously voted for our new management company, Grand Adams. There was no confrontation. We went through the process as smooth as we could. It's just an honor to be part of that process. It was a lot of hours, very time consuming, and that's our strength, how we came to this decision. We argue at times, we don't always get along. We have confrontation about certain issues, but this is what united us, this management company. What our weaknesses are, is that the second part of the question?
What was the gap?
What was the gap? For me, being a first-time director, it was hard for me to wiggle my way in and find my place. So that's what I felt was my gap. But after a year, I have confidence that these members that I sit, these directors now have confidence in me. So that was my gap, trying to fit in and knowing what I bring to the table.
Okay, thank you. Joanna, what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of, and what would you like to build upon?
Within the last year, or just
Generally, the board, let's just say in its last term, 1 to 3 actions that you do approve of, and what would you like to build upon?
I did really appreciate the 2019 survey that went out to everybody. That was an action by the Crowa. They spent their money on that. That was nice. Another action. I'm getting stumped. I think the problem is that there was a halt once Crowa happened. Once COVID happened. So if I can just say one, I would say the 2019 survey. And basically what I would improve on, just Crowa in general, is just more engagement with the community, more surveys being put out, more engagement on social media. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to mail out a survey. You can easily use your email roster. You can use a text roster. There's a lot of different ways to engage the community. So I think that's something that can definitely be proved with Crowa. Even talking to different sort of groups. There's a lot of groups within Celebration. So I think just like going out, maybe just going to a food truck Friday. I know some people don't like doing that, but just going out and, reaching out to maybe different types of families in Celebration. I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Charles, what is the one new amenity? I got 2.
Oh, sorry, the audio cut out. Can you repeat one new amenity? I'm sorry.
Yes. What is the one new amenity, if built, that you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
I honestly think a community center would be an amazing addition when you look at everything, all the different demographics, everyone kind of where they are when you think about Island Village and the families and the founders and just all across the spectrum. A community center really is the place. You can have all types of sports. You can have events. That really is a multi-purpose facility. And, you talk about the pickleballs. I assume you can play pickleball inside. I don't know. I don't play pickleball. That would be great. But, you talk about basketball, you talk about, just arts, having stages or different things. I think that's really a great way to, to bring everyone together. Now, obviously, there's a lot of resource constraints and, that it's not cheap to build that. So I think, that came up, obviously, though, in the survey as an important item. So I'm surprised it hasn't gotten, or it's definitely at the top of the list. I think that can add a lot of value to us. I think, you know, where you are, everyone can use a community center. So I'm totally in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Elena. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We know that transitions take time. What do you believe are realistic expectations for Grand Manners in 2022 and why?
So someone mentioned earlier that this is a typical transition. I disagree with that. There's not anything typical about this. A well-planned transition does not have hiccups along the way, and not a hiccup this large. So I think that that's something that could have been prevented in one way or another, at least built into contracts of any sorts. I believe that Grand Manners can and will be successful by the end of the year. I think that they will pick up the pieces that have been left, and the systems will be in place. And I believe that all of our residents will be happy with the service that they're able to provide. I know many have had questions regarding the call centers. Personally, I've had a wonderful experience with the call centers because I've been able to call them at 8 o'clock at night. And I think that that kind of flexibility is helpful. You know, that it is nice to have, because we have so many people here in this community that work for Disney that have all sorts of work hours. So I think that we need to be able to better suit their needs in general. And I think that's something Grand Manners can do. And I believe that they will be very successful by the end of the year if a good project plan is put in place with deadlines, with bullet points, and you know, checking off the list as we go.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Mcfadden, Crowa has responsibility for an annual budget with a gross revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is key component. I know when I need to give up. A component of the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget? And can you explain the various categories of assets that the Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenses?
Well, being a current Crowa board member and living through the budget process with our president, Brian, who talks about it over and over and over and over again, because that is what he's good at. He's amazing at it. And our treasurer, Cindy. As far as understanding the budget, I don't understand it. I try to educate myself, but I can't sit here and say, I understand where everything goes. I know there's money for certain things. I think of it as how I do my bills at home. We get the money, put it in different envelopes, and we draw from the envelopes. And that's how I try to interpret how our budget is run, or what we use our money for. I can't be I can't be specific. Best as I can answer.
All right, thank you. Matthew, what is the one new amenity, if you could build it, do you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
So I think a community arts center would be useful. My wife is a concert violinist, and it would be nice if her group that she participates in and others she hopes to be a member of could perform here in Celebration. I know that there's been talk about the old movie theater in town being used. Hopefully the Crowa and the other community organizations could work with Lexington and come to a reasonable plan for that to be a reality.
Okay. Jim, what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and would like to build upon?
Definitely all the work they put in and all of the effort and time and discussions in finding a new management company, building the process. Obviously, that's something all of us need to build on, and we will. Also, I think it took a lot of courage to have a meeting specifically on pickleball, where the only thing that was discussed was pickleball, and everyone had a chance to talk about it. There was a lot of heat, if you will, as many of you know, around that topic. And so rather than avoiding it, they stepped forward and took questions and comments from a lot of people. So I look forward to that. And the last one is a little bit self-serving. I'm very happy that they approved moving to a unified secure cloud platform for email and files, being that our committee presented that. Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you. Bill, what is your perception of how much time is required of a board member to effectively perform the role? And how will you manage the time commitments? And what changes do you think are required of board members to effectively govern the required time commitments?
Well, knowing some of the board members and of course asking this question, what would be the commitment? I have a general sense of being about 15 to 18 hours a week. I agree with what Matt said, that the board is the board and sets policy and approves budgets and contracts and things, but the management company is the manager and should be managing things. But as far as my commitment to being available, I'm going to quit my job. So.
Is that if elected? You're gonna
Okay.
No, I'm quitting my job either way. I gave notice, but I'm leaving. I'm retiring the end of March. So.
All right. Matthew, Crowa has the responsibility of an annual budget of $7 million. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is a key component of the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget? Can you explain the various categories of assets that Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenses?
Reasonable. I am beginning to be reasonably familiar, having, in the past year joined the finance committee and sat through lots of sessions with the rest of the committee members, some who are sitting next to me or in the audience. So yes, I am. And this is the kind of thing I used to do in my professional life, looking at budgets, looking at financial statements, catching issues, which I've done here in Celebration over my years, and will continue to do that. But yes, there are an operating budget and there are capital and different categories of reserve funds, both for service areas and for Crowa overall.
Thank you very much. Ms. Elena, the board consists of 7 individuals. An individual board member can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with the other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present you if elected?
Sorry to intrude, but she's trying to rejoin Teams. Or mic got.
Oh.
Yeah.
Elena, you? Okay, if she's trying to rejoin, then we'll move to you, Joanne. We'll ask you that question.
Oh, okay.
The board consists of 7 individuals. The individual board member can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with the other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present for you if elected?
I don't personally think I'll have any challenges. A lot of my experience, as I mentioned in the opener, I am a veteran. I was in the Air Force. So a lot of times, most of the generations that I report to and I work with are of, I'm getting some feedback. They're usually of older generations. Even the Veterans Club, I'm on the board. We have World War II veterans. I'm able to work with them. In the 4 years I've been at Disney, I've been promoted about 5 times already. So I think I have a good, working relationships with people. I'm able to work with them and get it done regardless of, age or anything like that.
Okay. Ms. Elena, are you connected back up with us?
Yes. Now
Okay.
it's me out.
That's okay. We'll go back to you. I'm going to ask you the same question, though, because I asked you first. The board consists of 7 individuals. The individual board members can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with the other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present you if elected?
Well, as far as challenges and opportunities go, I've already met with 2 of the current board members, and I look forward to meeting the others and understanding their expertise. I think that it's important to have a balance of kind of a who knows what, who is not just the jack of all trades, but who really has the expertise in financials, who has the expertise in architecture, who has the expertise in budgeting and improvements and capital expenditures. All of those things have to be in balance between all of the board members. So my challenge would be at first to figure out where I fit into that system. So again, with having an MBA, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But I know a little about everything, and I feel like I would be very beneficial to this board.
Thank you very much. Bill, what is the one new amenity, if built, that you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
Living with an artist, I think an art center would be a great idea. But something that has the flexibility to have music, have drama, have visual arts, whatever, flexible community space. But, we've primarily focused on outside things, and I think that the lawn sports and the pickleball courts are going to take place. But I think the big picture is to find a community space for all those other things that I think a lot of people would like to do. As long as I've been here, people keep talking about why can't we use the movie theaters? And that may be an option. I think it's up to Lexan more than any of us. But there are other options as well that are being explored and have been explored. It's going to take a lot of money to do any of those things, whether we're buying a building or leasing a building, refurbishing this building to a different purpose, whatever. I think that would be a great opportunity for the community to have place for play, theater, music, art displays, all kinds of things.
Thank you, sir. Charles, what is your perception of how much time is required? Oh, excuse me, I'm reading the wrong question. My apologies.
If you want.
What is your opinion on the process related to both the lawn sports and the placement of the pickleball courts on fields 1 and 2 or Lot D? What would you have done differently and why?
All right. So I think this really boils down to communication and engagement. I think that so let me back up a little bit. I support pickleball. I don't have a problem with lawn sports. I have a problem when it is not communicated properly. I have a problem when 45 people show up to a meeting. That is a challenge, and we need to get past that. We need to find a way to communicate with the community. I think we need to invent a higher communication approach here in Celebration. We need to start with a strategy. We need to understand what are the messages we need to get out to the residents, to get them educated, to get them informed, to get them to take action. That didn't happen with pickleball. That didn't happen with lawn sports. I think you can go back in the history of Crowa the last 4 years, and you look at this, the RFP, you look at the dog park, you look at pretty much it happens every single time. Someone goes to a Crowa meeting, one person, they put it on the back porch, outrage ensues. People get angry, people get irritated. You can't get into town hall because people are just so fired up, and then it goes away. So we need to find a way to bottle that up. We need to find a way to get people engaged permanently. And it all starts with communications. And I think we need to acknowledge this is 2022. Social media is not going anywhere. We need to acknowledge that people can't come to these meetings. And Facebook is an important communication channel. There's a lot of good feedback there. So why are we not taking advantage of that? Why are we not communicating and continuing to do this? You know, this is the same thing over and over and over again. So, you know, long story short, I think, you know, the communication has to get better. And in turn, once we do that, I think the engagement will. And, you know, even if 10 more people join, it's a start. So hopefully that answers the question. And hopefully I have
Yes,
some.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. McFadden,
Sure.
what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and you would like to build upon?
Did I answer that already?
Yeah, she did that.
She did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the
I wrote it down.
pickleball lady.
Yeah, she's.
No, there was the one, there's a
I'm the
similar
one
one.
sports-
It's very similar. That's
There's a
what,
similar one.
I'm keeping track. That's
Yeah.
why.
Okay, ask me that again.
What are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and what you would like to build upon?
I didn't think I answered this, but that's
Well,
okay.
you've answered the question
okay.
that's similar to.
Okay, so 1 of 3 actions of the board. The main action of the board was our whole RFP process that we went through, bringing on a new management company into Celebration because after 25 years, we needed it. So that action, what we did as a group unanimously is, can you repeat the question?
Okay,
Yeah,
number 2. What are the 1 to 3 actions
right.
of the current board that you approve of and would like to build upon?
So we picked Graham Manus as our management company. And as far as what I want to build on, I want to build on better communication with the community. But in all fairness, tonight's meeting was communicated the same way we communicate with the residents in Celebration, celebration.fl.us, Celebration News, Celebration Friday Flash. So how we communicated tonight's forum and how we communicated to the residents about pickleball or lawn sports is the same communication. So besides enhancing our communication, I think there's nothing else we need to build on as a board.
Okay, thank you. Jim,
Yes.
the board consists of 7 individuals. An individual board member can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with the other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present if you are elected?
Well, ideally, it's 7. One of the challenges that the board has had over the last couple of years is they haven't been at full staff. So that is difficult sometimes to do when you're down a person or 2 people to carry the same load. I know all of the directors that will have continuing terms. I've talked to them multiple times. You can learn to talk with people, but I want to mention one thing that's totally off topic, but because everyone else mentioned their master's degree, I do have a master's degree in clinical psychology, which I believe is going to be very helpful in working with the current board. No offense. Okay. But I think that knowing kind of having a sense of a person is helpful when you have to start talking about very serious, sometimes heated discussions, and you want to try to stay calm, and you want to not see them as the issue, but see them as a person. And I think we're kind of missing that a little bit, I think, as a community right now. And I think with CCMC coming in, going out and Grand Manners coming in, sorry about that, I do believe that we not only have an opportunity to work with them, but I think we need to kind of, as a community, look to a new vision, look to a reset, and think about what Celebration 2.0 should be. And the answer is not Lake Nona. It's Celebration is to become Celebration 2.0. And so we need to think about that, but I'll talk to you more about that later.
Okay. Matthew. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We all know that transitions take time. What do you believe is our realistic expectations for Grand Manners in 2022 and why?
My expectation for the transition to be complete be sometime over the summer. To have most of the accounting information that they're struggling with from prior years, so we have the historical, so we can have the opportunity for the first time to do some trend analysis on what's going on in our community where we're spending money. Having a full board is important, but I also think we have to transition from the board being management to the board being a board, and that'll take some detoxification for people to change their MO and work as board members and work differently with a management company that's capable of our respect. And that's where we'll spend some time.
Thank you. Joanna, based on the past year, what do you see as the one strength and the one gap with Crowa's leadership for Celebration?
I think the one strength that Crowa board has had is actually in the selection. So we've actually had, like Elena mentioned, we did meet up with two people, Brian and Jackson. So they had actually reached out to every single candidate and said, you know, if you want to meet with me, do it. So I thought that was awesome for a current member of the board to reach out to every candidate. You know, every candidate was given the opportunity to reach out and meet with them. I thought that was super nice of them to do that, and then to also meet us, you know, whoever contacted them. And then the second part of the question.
The second part of the question was, what was the one gap of leadership?
So one gap of leadership, I think what I've seen of the Crowa board, it seems like there's a top player and everybody else is kind of just following suit, which kind of makes, I mean, you don't want it to be a tyranny, right? You ultimately don't want an HOA board to be run by a tyrant. Not saying that Brian is a tyrant at all. I'm just saying no, not at all. But there are hard workers, and then, you know, there's followers. I think on a 7-person board, everybody has to put in the time, energy, commitment. And to piggyback off of Jim Hayes, I do have an MBA. So I think, you know, everybody has their part. And it's all a team effort. It's all teamwork. So, you know, not just the top 3 or the top 4 have to put in all the work. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mcfadden, the board consists of 7 members, and individual board members can only be as effective as their ability to network with and reach agreement with other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present you if elected?
Well, first of all, there'll be, if I'm reelected, there'll be an additional 2 board members, 2 directors. I work well with the directors that I serve with now. We all have our faults. We all have our perks that we all have our, the main thing is celebration is our passion. Whatever it takes to protect the residents' assets, that's what we're there for. Like I said, we may argue, we may not agree on things, we may disagree on things, but we all can't always be, oh yeah, let's do it. There has to be some kind of diversity on the board. And just, if I get reelected, when I get reelected, there'll be 2 other board members sitting with me, and to make sure that we have 7 board members there, because it is hard when there's only 6, especially when you have to vote on something. And, you know, it's hard when there's only 6 directors. So we need that full board to be there.
Bill, what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and would you like to build upon?
I think the 3 actions are part of what I see as a realignment and reinvention of the whole structure of the town, starting with the Covenants Committee. 3 years ago, we met for hundreds of hours and went over every line of the covenants excruciatingly. I can tell anybody, it's really a boring document and don't recommend reading it that much. But we laid the groundwork there for some of the things we're doing with the finance. Like we set up the idea of a rolling budget. We set up so that the new committee doesn't come in and inherit the process of coming up with a budget. We also set up a structure where the majority doesn't change, majority of the members doesn't change in any given cycle, so that there's a continuity going forward. So that, because there have been instances where the committee came on and then direction changed in another direction on short notice. So we've tried to structure things for the future. And of course, the effort to get CCM removed because they were failing us for slowly for a long time. And bringing in Grand Manners was a major effort on the RFP committee. Again, many hours were spent on it. But I think all of these things are placing Celebration towards going through a future. You know, we're building on a strong base and a strong history, but we can't run on history. We've got to run on the future and on having a plan for the future. So I'm hoping that those 3 things are where we're going, and I think we've positioned ourselves to do that as a community, and the groundwork is laid. Now we just need to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Miss Elena, what is the one new amenity, if built, that you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
Personally, I think hands down it would be a community center. I think community center was voted on earlier in one of the last surveys that was sent out. There was a lot of interest in a community center, and there still is on social media. A community center can be used for all sorts of clubs, for events, and for, again, multiple generations that we have in this community.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Short and sweet. Mr. Hayes, Jim, what is your perception of how much time is required of board members to effectively perform their role? How would you manage this time commitment, and what changes do you think are required for board members to effectively govern with required time commitments?
I thought you forgot my first name.
No, I said you.
This is a big deal, right? This is something that we've all talked about. Those of us who have full-time jobs, it is additionally challenging to do this. That's why I'm very happy to work where I work. It's a company called Ag America Lending. I started working there at the end of August. During the interview process, I told them and spoke about the work that I'm doing with the technology committee here in Celebration. They know it's a very important part for me. They know that I need to sometimes interrupt the day of work to do things for Celebration, which I do now. For the tech committee, we spoke with Duke Energy today at 2 o'clock to 2:45. And so I think that's important, that you have the support of your employer if you are employed. I do also agree, though, with Matt, not the first time, I've agreed with you plenty of times, but specifically around the idea that we need to move. And I do think, I guess to answer the question, I do think it's also around 15 to 20 hours a week, but it can vary, right? Your mileage can vary depending upon what's going on. I know many board members spent many weeks of above 20 hours in the last year. But I do think we need to move with Graham Manors and figure out a way where we can, if possible, become more efficient, reduce that number of hours and allow people who do have full-time jobs to participate and run as well. So hopefully they'll have the support of their company, but even if they don't, they can still work in the time to do it. But I think that's very challenging right now. I guess if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I'll know how challenging.
Charles. Crowa has responsibility for an annual budget with the gross revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is the key component of the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget? And can you explain the various categories of assets Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenses?
Nope. So not yet. So I am working my way toward the budget. So I know at a high level that it exists. There are capital expenditures, there are replacement reserves. I have an MBA as well. I know enough about budgets and accounting to, be able to work with things, but I also realize we have great partners. We have the finance committee. We have current board members. We have past board members. There's also a level of self-learning and education. So I think definitely it's something that I need to wrap my head around. I'm committed to wrapping my head around it. What I can tell you is I am on page, I have it right in front of me, page 20 of 127 of the Celebration Charter. So I think, it's definitely having the initiative to learn it. You need to know enough about it to understand the processes and be able to make fiscal decisions. And that's my commitment. But again, we have great resources, great partners. And I think being able to know what questions to ask, when to ask them, where to ask them is really important. So that's definitely something that I'm committed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Elena, what is your perception of how much time is required of the board member to effectively perform their role? And how will you manage those time commitments? Go ahead.
I believe that is roughly about 25 hours per week. So it's essentially a part-time job. I'm aware of that. I have the flexibility to work from home. I do manage people, and I have direct reports, and I have a team that reports to me. So I'm able to do all of that remotely just fine. Just like I'll be able to do some of the work for this board remotely as well. Obviously, not all of the meetings I could attend in person, but what I can, I will. With that said, I know that the time fluctuates also. I know that Jackson has mentioned keeping up all of his hours on a notebook and how much time the RFP process truly took for the board. And I understand that the time will fluctuate, and I'm ready to make the commitment, and I will make the time. It's what we need to do. And I think that it is important to pave the way for people that do have full-time jobs and careers to be on boards. It's important for us to have our voice heard because we matter. We're also residents, we're also owners, and not all of us can make it to the meetings, but those who can, they need to speak up for the rest.
Thank you. Jim, what new amenity, if built, do you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
I think the prudent thing to do is what my fellow candidates did over here. And my wife has a degree in drama. So I do also support performing arts of some kind. The community center is kind of not specific in what it is. I think part of a community center definitely is performing arts. I do think we have an opportunity potentially with theater to fulfill some of that in a fairly straightforward way, as opposed to the challenges of building a large community center. I do know that the board in the past couple of years has worked toward that. They've been looking for places to potentially move into. It's, as you may be aware, it's a kind of a hot real estate market. So it's not quite as easy to do that as one might think normally. So that's what I'm going to go with. Good job, guys. Thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Joanna. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We all know that transitions take time. What do you believe are the realistic expectations for Grand Manners in 2022 and why?
So I'm sure everybody's aware that Disney purchased Fox pre-COVID. So that transition involved very large companies. And I've kind of been involved in that finance process. I mean, because they're so large, it has taken so long. And because COVID did happen, it kind of delayed that transition. Realistically, expectation-wise, I think hopefully by summer, it can be fully transitioned.
Okay. Bill, what is the one, oh, excuse me, I already asked you that question. What is your, oh, I've got so many questions in the asked. What are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and you'd like to build upon? I've already asked you that question.
Yeah.
Don't answer. You get a
I don't chew
mulligan.
my cabbage twice.
Yeah, you get a mulligan. I'm sorry. I'm losing track here. My apologies. Based upon the past year, what do you see as the one strength and one gap of Crowa's leadership in celebration?
Over the past, what, 1 year or
1
longer?
year.
Hmm?
In the past 1 year. Or you can expand that to 2 years.
No, I think the paramount achievement is transitioning away from CCMC to Grand Manners, and it's very difficult. It's still in transition. I don't know that there's been any things that didn't happen that should have happened. I do know that from my involvement in some of these things is that these have been very time and energy consuming, from the covenants right up through the selection of new management. And so that has taken, I think, a lot of the board time as well as everything else. Certainly the financials weren't good under CCMC and took a lot of committee effort to make sense of them. So I those things have taken time. And I think now that, as I said in my last answer, the groundwork I think is being laid, and going forward, I think that things should move much more efficiently.
Thank you. Matthew, what is your opinion of the process related to both the lawn sports and the placement of pickleball courts on the fields 1 and 2 or Lot D? What would you have done differently and why?
I'm familiar with, tangentially, the lawn sports discussion. I'm not a lawn sports or pickleball player. I think it's been thorough, and I think the conclusion of using Lot D is reasonable to me. We need to maintain the other fields for the soccer, the lacrosse, those kinds of things, and have a separate area for pickleball and lawn sports. So I'm comfortable with those.
Okay. Ms. McFadden, This one should hit you really hard. What is your opinion on the process related to both the lawn sports and placement of pickleball courts on the fields 1 and 2 or Lot D? What would you have done differently and why?
I don't think I would have done anything differently. We as a board communicated the way we needed to communicate to the community. We had a full discussion on March 19th, April 9th, May 14th, May 26th, June 18th, June 23rd, canceled 2 meetings, canceled the special pickleball meeting out of respect for the Jewish community. Communicated everything every month in the Celebration newspaper, magazine, sorry, the newspaper's gone, but in Celebration magazine, the Crowa board announcement. Every single month, we communicated on celebration.fl.us. We communicated and communicated and communicated, and it was a mistake with one word. I feel that our executive director used task force that blew the whole thing up, that sent us backwards because we were moving forward with all these discussions. I don't think I would change anything. We learned from pickleball with lawn sports and went the right direction. We got a task force. We met with all the people involved with where it was going to be placed. We communicated to the community. Whether people say we didn't, we did. I know we did. And like I said before, we communicated the same way as we communicated tonight's forum on all of our forum, celebration.fl, and the magazine. So I don't think we would do anything different.
Okay, thank you very much. Charles. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We all know that transitions take time. What do you believe are realistic expectations of Grand Manor in 2022 and why?
So I think 2022, it's going to be really important for Grand Manners to really just understand our culture, celebrate. And I've had really great discussions with Lauren and Patrick and several staff there, and it's going to happen. It will. I have the utmost confidence that the right decision was made to move to Grand Manners. I've looked at the technology with SierraNet. There's some really great information out there, and they're going to be growing pains along the way. CCMC was here since the beginning. There was a lot of institutional knowledge that left, when they did. I think, what's going to be key, and I think Elena really hit this pretty hard, project management. We have to make sure that we're monitoring these deliverables and these milestones, and we're executing on this. There's a lot that goes into a transition, such as the size and scope of our community. We need to make sure we're constantly monitoring that. We're having great discussions with the community. We're hearing what's going on, whether it's the call center or staffing, and we're having touch points with the community. Again, back to social media, it's really important that we leverage those channels. There are a lot of great channels, the Friday Flash, the magazine, the website. Keep those out there, but keep exploring. The whole point of communication is to give everyone as much information as possible in the best possible way that makes them. But you're going to get the best results when you keep reinforcing it with communications. And so I think we're going to get there. I really do. Again, project management, communication, and being honest and open. If we're not hitting a milestone deliverable, let the community know about it. Let's have a conversation. Keep it open, keep it flowing, and keep it constructive. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We all know that transitions take time.
Oh, I've answered that one.
Did you? Yes, you did. Did you?
Yep.
Okay. I'm losing it. You gotta forgive the gray-haired old Colonel because he's losing. He only has 2 megabytes of RAM.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Yep. Okay. Well, then let me ask you this one. What new amenity, if built, that you feel would benefit the residents of Celebration the most?
So I think I'm going to divert from everybody and say we don't need anything new. Right now, there's a lot of amenities that need to be improved on and maintained. I know one of the biggest expenses of that is to renew the soccer fields. You know, the water, drain the water and all that stuff. That costs a lot of money. And I think we should divert some of the funds to, you know, improve those things, improve the basketball courts so some kids can play basketball. Improve some of the swimming umbrellas, the swimming, you know, I don't know specifically what that's called, but that's just an example of some of the amenities that we currently have that we can use those funds to improve on. So I don't think necessarily something new would be my vote. Yep.
All right. Bill, this is a money question. Crowa has the responsibility for the annual budget, which grosses revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is a key component of the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with Crowa's budget, and can you explain the various categories of assets that the Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenditures?
I'm familiar with the budget because I'm on the budget subcommittee. So attend the meetings and see the budgets. As far as the different categories go, there's the operating budget, which is generally expenses such as this is what it costs, you know, for lawn cutting, this is what it costs for electricity, whatever it is. And it's done every month. And then you track it on a year to date. And then you have a variance column that says, well, we're above or below budget. And we're getting those reports. But we also have a dedicated capital account, which is for improvements, things like pickleball, things like community center if we get there. And it's not an operating expense. It's a capital expense, and it's based on the engineering study, which is done every 3 years, which lays out what needs to be done, what needs to be repaired, and then whatever we don't need to spend money on retaining or maintaining, we then have money for improvements, new amenities and things. And I think we need to continue adding amenities as long as they make sense financially, because it has to do with the valuation of our community, not just the perception of our community, but the value of our real estate investment hinges on whether we're competitive with other communities. And we don't need to have everything they have, but I think we need to have a representative selection of things that others can have. So again, I'm very familiar with the process, very familiar with with this particular budget. And, in the course of my work, I make budgets like this from scratch for new properties, and same with the capital budgets. I do capital budgets from scratch and pretty much work with somebody's every week for a project that we have underway.
Thank you, sir. Matthew, based upon the last year, what do you see as the one strength and one gap with Crowa's leadership for Celebration?
I think the transition that we're just in the midst of from CCMC to Grand Manor, it's been a strength. When I came on to the finance subcommittee, it was quite obvious to me that CCMC needed to go, but I had to move slowly to get everybody's complete buy-in. And so that was something everybody came around to it over time, and we got there. And I think that was great how that process worked out. And that would be the one main thing that I'm quite pleased about, how it went, and what we learned from the oral presentations of the two semifinalists was quite good and thorough. And the people that I was interested in, were in the mix, and they handled themselves well.
Okay, thank you. Charles, what are the 1 to 3 actions of the current board that you approve of and what you would like to build upon?
So I think 1 to 3 that I approve of. I think the management transition was necessary. So I think that is definitely, kudos to that. We'll get through some of these, hiccups along the way. I think, the time being put in and I think there's definitely care and love, with regard to the community. I think, you look at the, Celia and David and Brian and the 4th of July parades, and they deeply care about the community, no doubt. And their hearts are in the place. I really do think so. But I think, I think we're running out of ideas. I think we're running out of innovation. And I think we need some infusion of that. I think the best organizations are those that evolve. Go look at any business. They change. They have to. You can't be complacent. I know we talked about communication, but we have to try new things. It's 2022. It's time to bring in some new ideas and perspective. So I think that's lacking right now. I think we desperately need that. Nobody's questioning that there's care and love and trying to do the right thing, but we need that innovation. And I don't see that right now. I'm not seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of, this is the way we've done it. We're going to get this way. And that's not how we move forward. That's how we move backward. And so that's really my one thing I would offer to change. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Mcfadden, what is your perception of how much time is required of the board member to effectively perform the role? How would you manage the time commitments, and what changes do you think are required for board members to effectively govern with the required time commitments?
I'll tell you from me being a director, I'm always begging Brian and David and Jackson and Cindy, can I have more to do? I don't feel like I'm doing enough. It depends on the situation. It depends on where we are. We spent a lot of time during the RFP process. There's certain directors that spend more time than others because this is the field they're an expert in. Like I said, we all bring something to the table. But being that Grand Man is our management company now, I noticed when the transition began that the emails dwindled to us as directors because now we have a company in place, a management company that is taking the lead. We're not micromanaging them anymore like we were doing in the past with CCMC. So it alleviated a little of the hours. But if you want to be on multiple committees, I'm on multiple committees because I enjoy it. I have all the time in the world. I don't work full time. I work 1 day a week, maybe. I have all the time in the world. This is my passion. I want to be on every single committee I could be on, and I can't get enough of it. But there are other board members that spend much more hours than I spend. And there are some board members that maybe could spend more time. It depends on the situation. It depends on what's going on in the community. It depends. There's all kinds of factors. But now that our management company is here, it's a little less time.
Okay, thank you very much. Elena? Crowa has the responsibility for an annual budget with gross revenues of approximately $7 million for 2022. Prudent budgeting and expenditures of Crowa funds is a key component of the board's responsibilities. How familiar are you with the Crowa budget? Can you explain various categories of the assets that Crowa has for capital replacement and operating expenses?
So I have mentioned previously that, yes, I have an MBA. I am a jack of all trades, master of none. Finance is not my strong suit, and this is where I would gain the help and the strengths of other board members and obviously our finance committee that is very comfortable with the budget and knows it inside and out. Yes, I've worked with budgets. I've seen budgets and P&L statements that are significantly larger than this one. at work, and I used to put some of those together as well. But I still feel like we need the experts on this, and I'm not the expert on budgets, to be honest. One thing I noticed about our budget that I have not seen in other HOAs is the amount of revenue that we make in dues. The 4.7 million that's a lot of money. That's really a lot of money, considering that our dues are not that large, actually. My parents also live in a HOA, a gated HOA community, and they pay nearly double what we pay here. And they don't have as many amenities as we do. They do have a manned gate instead. So I think that I would work with the team of experts in this instance and get to know the budget a little bit better.
Okay. Jim, what's your opinion of the process related to both the lawn sports and placement of pickleball courts on fields 1 and 2 or Lot D? What would you have done differently and why?
I was hoping as time goes on, you get more confused about who you asked, that you wouldn't actually ask me that one.
Well, see, I have to keep track.
I know, you're doing a good job. It's getting easier for us because we're hearing the same questions over and over. It's more difficult for you because you have to eliminate down who hasn't had that question. So I believe that it's important to think through these things and work through all of them. Like a few people here, I believe it or not, have not played pickleball. I don't play lawn sports. I don't own a dog. I don't play soccer on a regular basis. Hopefully I'm not losing votes, as I say. But again, good of the community. That's what we're here for. That's why I think that's really why we're residents. Forget about Crowa board members. I think we have a sense of community and cherish a sense of community. And I think that's why great majority of us live here in Celebration. And I think what communication is important, but I think community is even more important. And if we can use communication to build the community back up, it's once you get bigger and bigger, just like in businesses, it's difficult to have that community feel. And I think that, again, the finance committee, the technology committee, the RFP task force, the Crowa board, all work together in varying amounts to figure out the right fit for us. And I believe that Grand Manors is that right fit. And other than that, I'm not going to speak about pickleball or lawn sports, other than saying, Celia, you've done a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Elena, what is your opinion of the process related to both the lawn sports and placement of the pickleball courts on fields 1 and 2 and Lot D? And what would you have done differently, if you would?
I would have sent out a new survey. I have heard that the surveys that we send out are expensive, and that is some of the fear about sending out a new one. There are much cheaper ways of sending out a survey in multiple ways. I also do not like the fact that we are using our kind of last pieces of land for something that is single use. I am personally not for single use spaces unless they are extremely particular, such as baseball fields, right? That you can only use a baseball field to play, essentially baseball and the like. But I think that the process would have been significantly better had we asked the residents this year rather than approving it this year when the survey was from 2019. There has been turnover in the community. There's been new members in the community. Maybe more community members are actually using current facilities that they want improved. So that's what I would have done differently, is I would have sent out an updated survey.
Okay, thank you very much. Matthew? The board is consistent of 7 individuals. An individual board member can only be as effective as their ability to network and to reach agreement with other board members. What challenges and opportunities will this present you if elected?
Some of the board members I know well, and some I don't. So I'll work to establish better relationships with the ones I don't know as well. Other than that, I've worked with several because I've been on a subcommittee, and I'm comfortable moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Bill, I think we've used all your questions up.
Nap time.
No, nap time.
Sir.
Okay. Ms. Mcfadden. Crowa is transitioning from CCMC to Grand Manners as a management company. We all know that transitions take time. What do you believe are the realistic expectations for Grand Manners in 2022, and why?
Okay, one of my co-board members has been instilling in me the past year, let the process work. Let the process work. We have to let the process work. The transition now is moving forward. We have an executive director that is extremely engaged in our community. We have a finance manager that is working alongside with the finance committee, who the finance committee is the best of the best that we have in our community. Our community manager has support now. So it can take, nobody knows exactly how long it will take, but we are moving in the right direction because we have all the right pieces in place. It could take to the summer, it could take to the fall. We don't know that. But as I said, we have to let the process work. And that's as best as I could say it.
Okay, Charles. Based on the last year, what do you see as one strength and one gap with the Crowa's leadership for the celebration?
Strength. I'll go back to what I said before. I think this board really does care about celebration, and they love the community. And I think they really are trying to do the right thing. I think their heart is in the right place. And there's no doubt about that. I think, when you interact with people, they love the community and whatnot. And I'm sorry, can you just repeat the second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Based on the last year, what do you see as the one strength and one gap with Crowa's leadership for celebration?
Okay, so the gap, I believe, with leadership is really not wanting to change. I know I said that before, but I think, standing firm on certain positions, not wanting to, acknowledge again that it's 2022. We can't sit still. We have to move forward. And I think, we get so comfortable with, well, this is how we do it. And I think that we're losing out. We're losing out on a lot of creativity. I think a lot of voices have been shut out. I think it is challenging to get to meetings. And I think there's, I don't want to say lazy governance, but I think, it's easy to say that decisions are made by those who show up. But a good board member and a good steward of the community will work to remove some of those hurdles. And they'll ask the community, well, what can we do to help you show up? What do you need from us as a board? And I'm not seeing that. We're not reaching out and trying to remove those roadblocks. We're saying, go to the meetings, go here, go there. It isn't 1998. The demographics have changed, the community's changed, communications have changed, and I'm not seeing that evolution. And until we get there, it's going to be harder because we're going to grow. Island Village is coming. There's a lot coming. So I would like to see, more embracing that going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, based on the last year, what do you see as one strength and one gap in Crowa's leadership for Celebration?
Well, it is really, I think people underestimate how difficult it is to make the change that we're making. I had a high degree of concern when I saw that we were going to have an RFP, because I have gone through multiple ERP integration and migrations, and I know what can go wrong. And I felt like it was a little bit rushed. I don't know all the reasons for that. I have confidence in the people that I know are on the board that there are reasons for it. And they were discussed and options were looked at, and they chose the best option they thought was available. So sometimes you have to do that. And I believe that's what's happened. I believe that's what we're struggling with right now. And I do believe, and I'm happy to hear a lot of the candidates agree that it is a right choice to have grant managers, that we need to keep working with grant managers, and we need to help them to help us, as they say in the Jerry Maguire movie. So I think what Matt has talked about, what Celia has talked about working to make the director position one in which it's manageable, but also in which we empower the management company to do a lot of the research. Basically, part of my career has been as a consultant. So as a consultant, the way I also approach being on the technology committee is we bring options, and that's all I can say.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you're all pleased to hear that I am rounds complete. I have no further questions from the questions provided. So at this given time, we will have closing comments from each of the candidates. Charles?
All right. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time echoing what we talked about. I think, there were some great questions, great dialogue. Hopefully you understand a little more about myself, what I want to bring to Crowa, and hopefully you've seen some passion and some spirit. I think, this is a great community, and we have a lot of different opinions on things, but I think every Jim said, it's all about community, and I think that is really what should with every single candidate. So what I want to do with my time, honestly, is I want to make a call to action. You look at the past history with voting, and it's incredibly low. What I would say is get out and exercise that right to vote. If you're not interested in voting for me, fine. No offense taken, but use your right to vote. That's what I have. Get out there, vote online, be engaged. Be a part of the community. Going on social media and complaining is not constructive. What is constructive is voting and using. That's my call to action to the community. Hopefully, know a little more about me, what I'm about. But I'm really excited to be here and be a part of the process. No matter what the outcome, I'm walking away with a different perspective on community government. So thank you for your and it was a great conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcfadden.
Okay. For my closing statement, I'd like to rewind to my life before Celebration. Along with my husband, we raised 3 sons in the incorporated village of Northport. When my sons were grown, I became a teacher assistant for the Harborfield Central School District at Oldfield Middle School. I was to assist a special education teacher with students of special needs and autism. My goal, make a positive daily impact on the students and their education. I left that job after 9 years to care for my growing amount of grandchildren. When moms were able to stay home, I ventured out for a new career. I became the activity and volunteer coordinator for Sunrise Senior Living of Smithtown. I was to provide a positive impact on the quality of life for my residents. One of my job descriptions was community outreach. I was in charge of fundraising for the Smithtown Parkinson's Foundation, the American Patriot Heroes Fund, and the Amvets of St. James. I can proudly say I raised thousands of dollars for these organizations on my own. So here we are now. I have worked with children who are our future, seniors who are our history, and now moving forward, my work isn't finished yet. I always go back to the word impact. It is my vision to continue to make a positive impact on Celebration My Home. I believe I have the community's best interest at heart, and I hope you will allow me to continue to serve for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matthew?
Yes, I look forward to serving if elected and using my expertise in finance to help guide the community in making good decisions. I understand the transition from CCMC. Sometimes you need to move it along because of the, I'll say, hostile relationship that it can exist with a company when they've been told that their services are no longer wanted. And there are certain risks to letting that transition start later. I'll just leave it at that. And that's important not to forget. But we're going to get through it, and I'm very comfortable we'll get through it. And thank you for having me here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Elena? Any final thoughts?
Yes, it's Elena. Sorry, I had to fix
Elena,
it.
I'm sorry.
So I've lived in Celebration since September 2019. That is when we moved here with my husband. I have some board experience. I'm the treasurer of Democrats of Celebration. And I had not been treasurer for that long. I don't have a lot of board experience, but I also believe that you don't need board experience to be a valuable board member and to have a positive impact on the community as a whole. I think that my professional experience and skills and project management skills and people management skills is enough to be on this board, to be maybe one of the directors on the board. I want to have a positive impact on this transition. I want to improve the transition that is happening right now. I don't see a plan. A plan has not been communicated to me as a resident. I don't know where we are in that plan. I want to see a plan. And if there isn't one, I want to create a plan and I want to share it with everybody else. I don't have children. I do have a career, but I have the time to spend on this board and to invest in our community. And that is what I want to do. If I'm not the candidate for you, that's okay. Don't vote for me and vote for somebody who represents you and who you think is going to have a positive impact on our community, because the community is just as important to me as it is to you. I look forward to, if I do win, representing every single person that lives here as the best that I can, and reaching out to our community members that are not able to make it to these meetings in person or via phone, those that have children they have to feed around this time or earlier when we started. I understand those things, I understand those hurdles, and I want to represent those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Thanks. The reason that I decided to run for the board is the same reason why I joined the Technology Committee, which is to help Celebration renew itself, really, to kind of, through technology in this case, right, bring new ideas, bring innovation, improve communication, make changes that will help us to be the same type of community at 15,000 and 20,000 people that we were at 3,000 and 5,000. That's really why I'm here. I don't know how many of you know me personally, but while I know everyone on the board well, and believe that I have a good relationship with them, I will be my own voice. And those of you who know me know I will be my own voice. I think you've heard tonight that I appreciate the work that the board has done. I agree with some of their decisions. I disagree with some of their other decisions, but I'm hesitant to come across as black and white on anything because you're not involved in that situation. We don't have all the facts. We don't have all those discussions, right? So it's really easy to jump in, Google some things, jump in and be critical. That's not what I'm about. I'm here to make the people who are on the board with me better and support them and when necessary, influence them, to my opinion, potentially, but really to make sure our focus is on the community and building the community. Thank you.
Bill.
Yes, well, I would like to be elected and selected to the board. And I would consider it an opportunity to be able to use what is really, for me, a lifetime of experience in, I think, relevant subject matter. The things that take place on the board are things I've been doing pretty much all my life. Certainly have a great deal of history in the community, having taught at least 13 different times at Lifelong. I've been on the New Urbanist Committee for a long time, on the Covenants Committee, on the Finance Subcommittee, and of course on the RFP Committee to select Grand Manor. So I have a lot of specific knowledge to the community. I also have a lot of general knowledge as to real estate management, construction, and planning for all of those things. So I consider it an opportunity to solidify the place I intend to live the rest of my life.
Thank you, sir. Joanne.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So historically, I've always been a full-time worker since I was 18 years old. As a person of color, that's ultimately what you need to do to get far in life. And my far in life is celebration. I moved here when I was 25 with my husband. I had 2 children. Even though I was working full-time, I did complete an undergrad. I did complete an MBA in 15 months. I graduated March 2020, so right before COVID. So I'm fully aware how to multitask and how to apply my time and effort effectively. I do love that I get to live, work, and play in celebration. I'm in that bubble 100% of the time. I have Instacart, and I've proven myself that I'm able to live, work, and play independently because my husband has been away from home for a year, deployed. So because I am able to do all of that, it's a really great support. I have support of my employer. I live in, one of the greatest towns in Celebration. My kids go to school a mile away. My job site is half a mile away, even though I do get to work from home. But I do love it. And I always love the quote by Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. And so that's what I'm doing here today. That's why I'm applying. I want to see a change. I want to see an improvement. I am on the younger side, but that just gives a fresh perspective in governance. There's certain opinions that are made on the table, and I think a diversity of opinion is not a bad thing. If you're looking towards the future, I think diversity in age, religion, and all those sorts of stuff are a great thing.
Thank
And
you
that's
very
it.
much.
Yep, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attendance in tonight. Before you and online, we have eight candidates that are vying for 3 seats on the 7-member board. The Celebration resident property owners, again, will have the opportunity to submit their votes either online or via a paper ballot beginning on January 31st. Voting will end on Tuesday, March the 1st at 5:30 p.m., at which time the ballot counting will commence. Winners will be introduced at the Crowa annual meeting on Wednesday, March the 2nd. Again, thank you very much for your attendance and good night.
Thank you.